Hi there, YouTube. I'm here to do a video response to Aaron Cleary's video calling bullshit on fake mental disorders. Well, the issues I have with this video is, one, he's a complete bigot about it. He doesn't speak like a normal human being. Two, he has no scientific evidence to back up his claims whatsoever. And three, I have no other quarrel with it other than he's just a fucking idiot. I mean, if you are gonna call bullshit on mental disorders, all except schizophrenia, and say schizophrenia is the only serious mental disorder, you're a fucking idiot. Now, if you guys don't know what schizophrenia is the disease which causes hallucinations of, disconnection from reality, hallucinations such as visual, auditory, olfactory, stuff like that. And it usually leads to relationships and friendships and all that stuff not being able to happen because you can't interact with people on a normal level, or you have a not psychotic breakdown, just I'm just going to call it a trip for now, I guess, But anyways, the other ones he does not acknowledge are autism, Asperger's, ADHD, dyslexia, bipolar disorder, and he says since they're all new age, they don't exist. Here's the issue I have with this. One, autism is a real mental disorder. You can see it in brain scans, and it's a disorder that usually affects that one part of their brain will be abnormally large, and it'll let them, be able to do something most people can't. For instance, a guy flew over New York, and just by watching it, then he drew every building in their exact position where it should be. And it was amazing that a guy could actually do that. But you got to remember that he's not going to be able to function normally in society. Like, he can't interact with people on a normal level. I mean, he's always going to have some difficulties communicating or doing tasks that he's being given and whatnot. And he says it's all bullshit, and you're just a horrible fucking parent, or your kid's just fucking stupid, which you can't just say they're fucking stupid. I mean, you have to look at the evidence. He proposes no evidence to say that it is in fact bullshit. Instead, he just says it's bullshit. I mean, there's mountains of scientific evidence that say mental disorders exist, especially ones like autism. Autism has a broad range of symptoms and things that happen with it that I can't get that far into because I'm not that familiar with autism. Another one you denied it, Asperger's, which is an actual mental disorder, but I'm not that familiar with that one as well. I am very well familiar with disorders such as ADHD, bipolar disorder, and dyslexia, because I tended to focus more on those in psychology class. Now let's start with dyslexia. He says you're just fucking stupid because you have dyslexia. No, dyslexia is the way your brain orders things, such as letters. They're supposed to be in a specific order, but they are not ordered that way, so it's hard for you to read things and understand what they're being said. Bipolar disorder, on the other hand, has to do with mood, in which case, you can be from euphoric to depressed. You can go from happy to angry, and sad, and every in between, because it's a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's just how that works. You can't just say, no, it doesn't exist. In the video, he said bipolar disorder was just a reason for your bitchy-ass girlfriend to be a cunt to you, which I feel like that's the only reason he's calling mental disorders bullshit, is because his girlfriend treated him like shit. And I mean, I'd treat this bastard like shit too. I mean, he's a complete cunt and just a bigot about everything. I mean, you can't go and say mental disorders are bullshit and call these people horrible parents and stupid because they actually have it. I mean, it's horrible. I would honestly love to beat the shit out of this guy. I feel like I would do the human race a favor. Another mental disorder, sorry, I'm getting off track, is ADHD. ADHD is a real mental disorder, although people that want to, say they have ADHD so they can take amphetamines or whatever because that's what is prescribed to help treat it as stimulants. Now, ADHD is overdiagnosed by far. I have to agree with anyone on that. I mean, anyone going into they have ADHD. I mean, it's easy to fake the symptoms and whatnot, but for people who have actually have ADHD, it's a problem in life. I mean, concentrating, getting done, homework, focusing. I mean, ADHD has a lot of problems with it. I mean, people say that blah, blah, blah. People say people with ADHD are usually lazy. No, the difference between being lazy and having ADHD is not doing anything is quite simple. Being lazy means you have a task that you don't want to do. Having ADHD means you have a task that you're either going to forget to do because you're caught up in doing something else, or your prefrontal cortex isn't getting enough dopamine to make you focus on doing that. That's one of the big problems with ADHD patients is they have a smaller prefrontal cortex, which means they tend to have less gray matter, but they do have more white matter, and white matter is what connects different ideas in your brain and whatnot together. This is why ADHD people tend to say they daydream a lot. It's because they take one idea and they go to another and they go to another, and they're going to many different ideas and connecting them all together. You can't just say mental disorders are bullshit because they're overdiagnosed. I mean, all right, for instance, let's say I go in and I have back pain. I just want to get painkillers to get high. Like, you can abuse that. You can abuse any form of medication that gets you high. Just like that, you can't say it doesn't exist and it's bullshit because it's overdiagnosed either. You can't just do that. And he goes on to say these are so-called new age, mental disorders. Why would he call them new age? He says because they didn't exist 20 years ago. Well, what's happened in the past 20 years? Computational technology has just gotten much better. I mean, we have MRI machines that can actually show you how the brain looks in a 3D environment, and then you can cut, through it and look at different portions of the brain that would be affected by this disorder. I mean, you can go on an MRI and see what parts of your brain are being active and see what they're doing. That's how we're understanding more and more about the brain, is by actually watching what's happening while doing a task, watching it function. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we've got more mental disorders, because we have much better diagnostic tools instead of just saying, there's a broad range of mental disorders that didn't exist. We have more, so we can differentiate them and get better treatment for them. And then he goes on to say, back in like the 50s and whatnot, people didn't have mental disorders. Society was much saner and shit back then, and everyone got their shit done, and they all sucked it up and acted, like men and whatnot. No. People back then probably didn't get treatment for mental disorders because, one, they didn't have any effective treatments for them, and two, fear of being chastised by your community for having a mental disorder. I mean, back then, you weren't supposed to be different. You're all supposed to conform to things and be the same and work and whatnot. Also, back then, you didn't need to be in high school or anything like that. You could just drop out, get a job and whatnot. You didn't need an actual education. I right now live with my grandparents, and I've talked about school with my grandparents, and they said the highest level of education they received for math-wise in high school was called business math, and business math is just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. They didn't need to actually learn all the stuff we have today to learn, like algebra, algebra 2, trigonometry, calculus, geometry, and whatnot. They didn't need that back then. So, that's one of the main reasons why you didn't need to be actually, there in school. You could just go with a mental disorder and just live with it. Also, there wasn't a big, deal about mental disorders back then. The only thing I can kind of think of is reefer madness and making you go insane and whatnot. But that's like a smear campaign on marijuana, but I'm getting way off topic here, holy shit. Anyways, back to the video at hand. After he says that about the 50s and whatnot, he goes on to say that more bigot stuff about mental disorders. Now you have horrible parents, and you're just a fucking stupid kid. And then he goes to say about the Ferguson things that have happened right now. He says if you're a black guy, you weren't born that way, but you're black, and you're in a community where you probably live in poverty, and you don't have access to certain things that people do. And he says you have two choices. One, you can work through that and get through it all in life and whatnot, and do your best and try and show everyone that you can do this. Or two, you just, become whatever, a stereotypical person, the gangbanger, whatnot. And that right there is just stupid. You can't say a race is the exact same. You can't compare a race to a mental disorder. If, here's how your brain works, right? You are a byproduct of all the senses and stimuli going on in your brain to process all the information of reality and put it to use. Sorry, your brain is basically a future predictor, and that's how it works. And your personality and everything's just a byproduct of everything that goes on in your noggin. Now, being born a different race has nothing to do with what you do in life, because if you have a mental disorder, a learning disability, for instance, and you can't learn enough stuff to get into college and get a good job, he just says you're just a fucking failure and you're stupid. No, you're not stupid. You just have a mental disorder that makes it hard for you to learn and interpret information. You're not necessarily stupid. Like, it makes no sense. This guy's thoughts are incoherent. I know mine are incoherent, but his are just like idiocy. Like, they make no sense whatsoever. I mean, he has no points for it to be even scientifically accurate. He shows no scientific evidence for any of this stuff, which just is like, alright, this dude's a fucking idiot. But the only reason I want to do this video is because how he says, like, you can't put out disinformation and expect people to believe you. I mean, you have no PhD in psychology or psychiatry or even neuroscience to even understand this stuff. You can't just say it's bullshit and then call people horrible names and say they're horrible parents or kids that they're stupid because they have mental disorder. No, it's wrong. I mean, for instance, this guy in the video that made that video, Aaron, fuck, I already forgot his name. He might have a mental disorder. He stutters quite a bit in this video. He might have a speech impediment. I mean, he seems angry all the time. He might have an anger issue that he needs to get worked out, but he's working through it. No, and but still, since you deny the existence of mental disorders, it does not give you the right to say that just because they're not performing well enough in life that they are stupid. It's wrong, and you can't do that. I feel horrible for the people I feel horrible for people with mental disorders, because I know how they can change your life and what they do to you and all that bad stuff. Anyways, I am Apotheosis. You guys have a wonderful night. I'll catch you on the flip side.